Live edition of the Ad Podcast. As you guys can see, we are in studio at Kiln in Rancho Bernardo. We've got an exciting guest for you guys today. Hawken Ritter is the head of growth at Convey. Hawken is a AI engineer, product strategist, and tech leader specializing in agentic workflows and enterprise automation. He is on the growth team and leads up growth at Convey, an enterprise platform that enables non-technical teams across publishers, agencies, and ad tech platforms to design, train, and deploy autonomous digital teammates. Hawken, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
So, everybody's super excited about agentic. That's kind of been the buzzword of the last year. And then you have this new kind of, direction that the industry's headed in, which is actually around digital teammates. So maybe a little bit less technical, a little bit easier for teams to think about. But before we get into it, I would love to hear a little bit more about, your background. Where'd you grow up? What'd you study? And how'd you get into the space?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town, Humboldt County kid.
Oh, let's go.
The real NorCal. My mom's a kindergarten teacher. Dad is a river guide. So I was far from the tech world.
Wow. From. Let's go.
I went to school in Southern California in Santa Barbara.
Yeah. Let's go. Gauchos all day.
Studied economics, a little bit of computer science. And then I started my career in San Francisco in consulting, like many.
Like kind of like Deloitte or KPMG, like one of those types.
PwC,
Okay,
exactly.
there we go.
It was actually a very cool job.
I can imagine, yeah.
They grabbed 15 people from across the firm. I happened to be one they selected, and they threw us in a room, and they said, go figure out SaaS startups that we can incubate inside of PwC. They give us these very high-level prompts. And so the prompt I was given was, we have a ton of mid-market companies at PwC that are clients. Let's help them expand internationally. Like, what are the problems they go face when they're growing overseas? And so I spent 6 months talking to everyone and anyone who was going through that themselves, and came up with a startup that looks very similar to what Deal is today.
Okay, yeah. One of my clients pays me through Deal, so it's great. It's like a bank account. And,
it makes it easy to hire folks internationally, that type of thing. And I pitched it to the partnership, and I must not have pitched very well because I got shut down. But in the process, learned a ton, and I actually met the operators at Lime. You remember them? Micromobility just went public, actually. Congrats to those guys.
Yeah, not Lime scooters.
Yeah, Lime scooters.
Really interesting. Okay, that's awesome.
So joined Lime to kind of help project manage. I was 23, 24. Project manage their international expansion. So Lime was working in the U.S. And
similar issues. How do you grow internationally and deal with compliance, especially when you're dealing with something like mobility and potential insurance risk and accidents,
totally.
Supply chain management, all the things,
and just getting physical scooters to Japan or to Buenos Aires or to Seoul, Korea. And it was a wild ride. Learned a ton.
I can only imagine.
Was just a young, hungry operator. It was super fun. And then we launched all the tier 1 cities and countries, and my role sort of shifted into solving problems in our most important markets, the Paris, the Berlins of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one problem for us was insurance.
Interesting. Okay.
Like we were seen at the time as an uninsurable risk.
Wow.
But we needed insurance to win these RFPs.
Yeah, even now, because they kind of clamped down and didn't let you guys just, carpet bomb a city anymore. It was it needed to be in partnership with the city.
And so you had to show up really well to win those RFPs, be a partner with the city, which we were super excited to do. But procuring insurance at a cost that made sense for our unit economics was challenging.
I can imagine.
And so at 24, I just went to every major insurer in the world, the Chubbs of the world, the Axis of the world, the Allianz of the world, and tried to convince them that this was a good idea. Eventually struck a really cool partnership with Allianz, and they became a strategic for us, helped us win RFPs, were a huge advocate for the space. And that kind of put me on the map from a deal-making perspective and shifted me into this, go-to-market revenue type of function role that I now play.
That's awesome.
And then DoorDash was about to go through a similar experience, expanding internationally. And so I joined their biz dev, corp dev function right as they were launching Australia, and kind of did the same thing over again, all in that same vein of like, how do we double, triple down on the markets that are working the best from a growth and BD perspective.
That's awesome. So anything else we should touch on before we come to current day with Convey, or was that kind of the highlights reel?
That's the highlights reel.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So a big shift in some ways, if you think about it, from going to mid-market consulting to consumer delivery, whether it's around mobility with hardware and Lime, or through third-party contractor networks for food delivery with like DoorDash. And these are big brands that we're all aware of, that we know their names. What got you excited about, going into kind of founder level operations, and how did you, because you were employee number 2, essentially pre-product over at Convey. When did you start getting familiar with the team and start thinking about this idea of digital teammates?
Yeah, so I met Rohan Chopra, who's our CEO. He was one of the founding engineers at DoorDash. Actually.
Interesting. Okay, so you met him.
And one of those rare guys that was there very early, but scaled with the organization. So I think at time of IPO, he was probably in his late 20s, running a team of hundreds of engineers. And so he had a very good rep.
I can imagine, yeah.
And the opportunity to team up with him again was exciting. And he's subsequently pulled over, some of his favorite engineers from over the years to kind of build the nucleus of Convey. And he was partnering up with 2 of his best friends from Stanford, Will and Diego, who are our CTO and CPO, who are just great guys. So it was really just opportunity to work with this very talent dense team that was connected to cousins of DoorDash, which was such an important part of my career.
That's awesome.
All the DoorDash founders invested in Convey as well. So
nice.
It's a very fun full circle moment, and just the problem. So, it's probably the biggest market to ever exist.
Yeah.
And the team is elite caliber, and we have serious tailwinds behind us. So it's just been fun.
So when you talk about the biggest potential market, how do you guys attribute the TAM for something like digital team mix?
Yeah, it's a squishy TAM because you can it's so horizontal. We have customers in nearly every category, in healthcare, in distribution, and retail, and CPG, in media, which we'll talk a lot about today.
Yep.
So pretty much anywhere you look, there is work that shouldn't be done by humans, and we believe we're the right platform to build. Whether you're a Fortune 100 enterprise or a mid-market with a few thousand employees, you need a platform to build a digital workforce on top of. And we've proven over the last 8 to 9 months that we can be not just the most efficient path to moving that work or delegating that work off to teammates, but also the fastest path for many of these enterprises. So it's just been an exciting journey, and we're just getting started.
That's awesome. So when you think about a squishy TAM, I used to always, there's a comment that stuck with me, in the advertising world. Wrigley's consumer, they always thought that their consumer was anybody with a mouth, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes when you have a squishy TAM, or a total addressable market where it feels sometimes like, oh gosh, there's like so much opportunity, so that's a great thing. But then it's also, where do you focus and like try and achieve ubiquitousness or something that kind of like leads naturally to other categories. But when you think about go to market as an operator, and you do have this massive opportunity in front of you, where do you get the signals and start to focus and figure out, okay, let's spend time in this area, and we're starting to, where do you even start with a situation like that?
I mean, the first 6 months of the company was very experimentation led. We didn't really know the answer to that question. But then, you have 100 conversations a week, you're going to start to get some signal of, oh, there's opportunity here, and it's repeatable. There's a big market behind these conversations we're having. And so we've tried to find those pockets of opportunity where we can niche down and get really good, get to a level of depth where we actually can talk to the COO of a $50 billion media company, and they can go to depth about their business. We understand them. We can go to depth about the technology and bring them along with us. And so, niching down has been the core strategy. And then once you're focused on a specific market or sub-market, word of mouth, customer referrals start to become your engine. So to date, customer referrals has been our second largest driver of growth.
That's crazy.
Is more a testament to the product team than to the commercial team.
Product-led marketing, as they say, right? Where the product is so sticky, your customers can't help but talk about it, even if it helps with their competitors.
Yeah. And the impact these guys are driving, these companies are driving, is so meaningful that they're stoked to talk about it. It's the COO of this massive company or the CRO of a large enterprise who's done work a certain way forever, as long as the last 2 decades, and Convey has come around and allowed them to rethink some of their core infrastructures, their core processes, and they are very excited to tell their friends about it because it's see from space impact.
Wow.
They're getting the high fives in the boardroom, and I think that's been the primary reason that channel has been so successful for us.
That's exciting. All right, so let's talk about, we'll get into the category for sure, and I know that's why you're here, because we've got a nice audience of media companies and agencies and brand marketers. But I want to continue to talk about what digital teammates are. So you gave me a little bit of a demo before we flipped on the cameras. It was pretty exciting to see that the idea of training an agent is now becoming as easy as training a human being.
Yeah.
You talked about the idea of a 5-year associate. Basically you just invite them to a phone call or a web call, and you train them the same way you would a virtual employee, essentially. So, we're getting out of the world in which you have to be a Claude coder and you've got to be able to write, just let a bot kind of watch your workflows, but there's still a fair amount of technical tuning that has to be done in some of these other agentic, training of agents. So can you talk about how the training of agents is now moving into this new idea of digital teammates, and how did you guys find that breakthrough?
If you think about the application layer in AI, phase 1 was the chat products, augment your Google search behavior. Everyone still uses and loves those products. Phase 2 was these productivity assistants, help me synthesize my emails, draft email replies, just do work faster.
Yep.
We're now in the agent era where you can teach an agent to do real work. But Convey and what we're chasing is, we think, the next frontier beyond agents, which is how do we enable you to deploy your own digital workforce? The thesis being every company, no matter your size, will have a mix of humans doing the very strategic work, and then these digital teammates, or this digital workforce that is being delegated the execution work. And so how do you enable that to happen? You build product for the folks who are doing that work today. And we don't want to, we have a lot of hot takes on, internal engineering pods, forward deployed engineers, different tactics companies are deploying to drive transformation. We believe the most effective and fastest path to the end state that, the C-suite has in mind for how an org should look is to empower the operator. Now, every company has these world-class operators. How do we take the context that lives in their head, which increasingly is the IP of a company?
Mm-hmm.
How do we take that context?
It's their day-to-day workflow and how they get stuff done faster than the other 90%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do we help them turn that into a world-class agentic system? That is what the product is geared towards. And what's so cool about helping these operators along that journey, one, it's new and it's super fun for them. But two, it's the first time a lot of these processes have ever been codified. They've lived in heads for decades. And so you're codifying these processes, and, you start to realize, there is a ton of upside if I just experiment on this part of this process. So you're able to push processes much further than you ever have been before, once you get them out of a head and into a system. that you can tinker with.
And because the system gives you an opportunity to look at it, from a data-driven perspective, or actually see it on paper, and then make small increments to where you can add and subtract things, or spend more time in different buckets. Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. And the whole platform is geared towards that idea of, we don't want to be an automation tool. We want to be a transformation partner. So phase one is get what's in your head into a V1 of a workflow, but then the product will help you as the operator iterate through, what's the ideal version of this. If you are a large publisher and you have a team of 500 account managers who are handling RFP to media plan construction, and building media plans off of RFPs that come in, it might take your humans 10 days to turn around an RFP today. If you delegate that work to an agent, we're seeing customers shrink that to an hour.
Wow.
And so what does that mean from an incremental revenue that you're unlocking if you're able to take that whole workflow?
Yeah, because you can process those orders much faster and hopefully free up that team to go find more business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So two effects. One, you free up those teams to go spend their, the new leverage that they have on, client-facing work.
Yeah, get out of the office, go buy people steak dinners, go to Laker games, do the fun stuff. Yeah, but the things that actually drive relationship and sticky clients and incremental revenue.
Yeah, which they love. And,
everybody loves that part, right?
Yeah. But also they can think critically and creatively about that work that they used to do. Say we used to always process an RFP in this way. First, we check inventory availability. Then we go, pull together the different products that we think will make sense. Then we get the client's feedback. There's just a sequential order to that. When it's delegated to an agentic system, you can do a million other things to put the perfect proposal back in front of the advertiser. So not only are you getting deals done faster because you're shrinking that time to turnaround, but you're also have a higher hit rate because you're putting something that's higher quality in front of the brand.
Interesting. So we're starting to get into it a little bit, but tell me about, for the logos that you can talk about, or even if you can't talk about logos, tell me why you think that Convey has resonated so much with the media industry, publishers, some of the things that you're already talking about, the idea of the RFP process and the insertion order process. Why do you think media and publishing is such a great application?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think part of it is just the realities of the tech stack that many of these businesses are built on top of. A lot of these businesses have been built through M&A.
Yeah.
So they have a ton of overlapping,
fragmented technology, fragmented processes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, if you think about the agentic tools out there, most of them play at the API or MCP server level. But if you're trying to access a system that doesn't have an API, you're kind of out of luck. And so back to sort of lore of Convey, since we all came out of DoorDash, or a bunch of us came out of DoorDash, a big problem we faced at DoorDash was integrating with merchants. So, the BD team would go and sell a huge QSR, a huge retailer coming onto the marketplace.
Yeah, but if they had proprietary point of sale, if they were using Toast or something that was open source, if they were using legacy POS, then that was an issue.
It was a huge. They'd say, I need orders to sync real time.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? We say, give us your API docs. They'd be like, what API docs?
Don't exist.
Yeah. And so it was just a problem that was circulating in Rohan's head.
Yeah.
And in 2024, the first vision models came out. And so you could, for the first time, train AI to click and type in a browser. And so the first product we actually built we called it the Universal API. And so at the very start of 2025, we rolled out the Universal API primarily in healthcare and logistics companies. I think we still have 50 plus clinics using this product.
Wow.
And they were using it to read and write inside of EHR systems, I think it's electronic health record systems, which didn't have APIs. But then this very interesting thing started happening where those customers who are using that product started hacking it for internal workflows. And we're like, oh, this is a much bigger opportunity to kind of, help these companies solve these problems instead of this external integration problem. But all that work, that we put into that Universal API has allowed us to cater to these media companies and companies in other verticals who are still sitting on top of those systems that don't have APIs. So you can get all the benefits of AI regardless of what your tech stack is today.
That's crazy. All right. Let's talk a little bit about, the media industry has spent the last 2 years giving every employee an AI copilot to summarize emails, draft copy, but ad ops teams are still buried in these campaign pacing reports or reconciling billing that has discrepancies. When you talk about digital teammates that take over full ownership of an outcome rather than just giving them a tool, what's the fundamental difference in how an agency or publisher has to think about AI when shifting from an assistant to an autonomous worker?
Yeah, I think this is core to kind of our thesis as a company, which is the only way to drive true ROI is through delegation. It's the same way when you're building a team, right? You can try to do more and more work to support the growing needs of the company, but until you hire and delegate some of that work to other people, you're never getting leverage for yourself.
You're still stuck in the cycle.
Exactly. And that same cycle is true for a ton of operators in every company. And so it's all about, or the platform is all geared around this idea of let's help take entire categories of work off of these operators' plates so that they actually have leverage and bandwidth to go focus on things that are going to move the business forward versus a lot of the productivity tools out there. They're great. I use them myself all the time.
Still, yep.
But they're ping pong products, right? You're swivel chairing between them. So they're very good for specific things. But if you want to create true transformation inside of an org, you have to be able to take 30, 40, 50% of that work or the processes that org owns and delegate those to these systems.
One of the coolest elements of Convey's architecture is that AdOps managers or programmatic directors can literally share their screen, walk through a workflow, and teach a digital teammate how to run it inside of platforms like Freewheel, Wide Orbit, or Salesforce. We talked a little bit about it, but why is the screen observation model more effective for messy legacy adtech startups or setups? Is it really just the idea around that lack of API integration? Is that the main reason why these systems are working so much better for training models?
I think it's actually if you're end user. So we have 3 end users. First, and we can talk about the other 2 later. But
Sure.
The first is the operator. So it's that world-class operator who has all the context in their head. We have just found that it's much more natural for these folks who may not be engineers, but they are good systems thinkers to imagine themselves onboarding a new employee versus vibe coding and automation.
It's a mindset change, even just the way that you think about training. It's like you're training the same way you would train. It's taking maybe demystifying some of the idea of how to train an agent or offload work to it.
Exactly. So we're teaching them how to fish, and we're catering the product to the patterns that make the most sense for them or are most comfortable for them. And then the product is, you don't have to get it perfect on day one to get value out of these digital teammates. You can teach them a process, and the way we've architected the system, if the teammate is doing a process and hits an edge case or a scenario that it doesn't have full confidence in, it'll
go back and ask.
It'll ask through the channels that make it look and feel like a remote employee. It'll send you a Slack or a Teams message. It'll shoot you an email and say, hey, Dylan, I was doing this process you taught me 4 months ago. I've never seen this type of RFP. Here's what I think we should do in this scenario, but can you confirm? Your feedback loop to that digital teammate not only unblocks it in that run, but it
trains it for the future.
Exactly. It's never going to ask that question again.
That's interesting.
Every digital teammate, every department that has deployed these teammates, they're getting better and better week over week, month over month, as the teammates see more of that process sauce that powers all these companies.
Wow. And the teammates, literally, that's how they don't communicate. They don't sit inside of a platform. It's through email and Slack and through the normal channels, and you communicate with them the same way you would any other virtual employee.
Exactly. We have a large streamer that uses a fleet of digital teammates. one of them is named Larry. And everyone in the company or all the account managers, when they need something done, they need a media plan built, or they need a proof of delivery deck, or any of these sort of activities, they just Slack Larry or tag Larry in a Jira ticket, and Larry operates the same way, a remote employee would operate.
It's crazy. All right. The media supply chain is notorious for using legacy software that doesn't talk to each other. DSPs, SSPs, ad servers, order management systems, financial tools. When you look at the ad stack of the future, is AI going to replace these underlying platforms, or are they always going to act as the autonomous connective tissue that sits on top of them?
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a place for the forward-thinking systems of record. I do think they will all become headless over the next few years. But until that happens, the ability for the agent or digital teammate to navigate, through the browser, like we were talking about.
Yeah, and as headless, essentially, they don't have a consumer-facing interface.
It's just all APIs.
Yeah, got it.
Because it doesn't make a ton of sense. It's fun to build those systems of record or vibe code them on the weekend, but it's a pretty bad use of an employee's time to be building that type of stuff, unless it's super strategic for the business. But a lot of these businesses are using these tools because they have a product that they're selling, and that's what's strategic. Building a CRM is not that strategic for them. So what would be the most rational decision is to lean on, the companies that is their strategic bet, is to build the world's best CRM.
Yep.
We have a CRM provider that we use.
Yeah, you don't need to vibe code everything from scratch just because you can these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. Every media agency and publisher deals with the nightmare of campaign underpacing. Budget overlaps between what they see on Meta and DV360, or billing discrepancies that cost millions to write off. How are Convey's digital teammates being deployed right now to catch these operational failures in real time before an ad campaign actually ends?
Yeah. So one of the cool parts about moving processes or delegating these processes to digital teammates or this workforce is you're no longer constrained by the natural bandwidth of a normal person's schedule.
Yeah.
And so Televisa Univision is a big customer of ours. They have their SVP of operations, this guy, Jeremy Varner, an awesome user. He has trained his teammate, Geoff.
I love these names.
It's awesome. He's trained Geoff to log into every DSP, SSP, analyze all of the deals that are live at any given time, spot anomalies that may exist in a specific deal that they would have missed otherwise. And then every one of their AEs, I think they have 100, 200 AEs,
Wow.
is getting a custom report saying, hey, AE number 50, you have this deal that you're responsible for, and it's going to underdeliver because of XYZ reason. I need you to go take action to fix it. So they're able to do things at a scale that wasn't possible before because they have a small team. And then take it further by doing a level analysis that is hard for a human to do, but for a computer, it's
and it's not just analysis; it's flagging for action, right?
Yeah,
so it's not just
proactive.
Like giving great reports; it's giving very specific, actionable, like go do this thing to make sure that the situation is resolved at scale.
Exactly, and
which
in some
would be
cases,
hard
just
even for a normal manager to be able to spot those things in the time that it needs to be spotted, and then communicate that all, individually to all those people.
Exactly, especially across billions of revenue, like a company of TU's scale.
All right. Publishers are under insane margin pressure right now. They want to sell more complex multi-platform media packages, CTV, audio, digital, but their yield and their ad ops teams are maxed out. What kinds of workflows are your publisher clients handing over to AI teammates first to unlock scale without ballooning their operational overhead?
Yeah, I think the process that we found most effective when working with these customers is to just audit the day in the life of some of these key roles. Look at the account management function. What is an account manager at one of these companies doing in their 40-hour work week? If you talk to these executives, they would love if every hour was creatively strategizing about the best way to get $1 million of incremental spend from, a brand advertiser they're responsible for. But that's just not the reality. Most of their time is spent clicking and typing,
locked down, doing data
execution
entry,
work.
essentially executional data entry. Yeah.
And so that's been the biggest unlock, at least in phase one of partnership with these folks, is let's just free up your really talented account managers to go do what they do best, which is to unlock dollars by being creative and getting in front of clients. And let's delegate everything that gets in their way of those types of activities.
Agencies famously waste hundreds of entry-level humans' hours every month, taking screenshots, pulling platform data, formatting PowerPoint decks for clients. When an agency deploys Convey to take over campaign reporting, how does that shift the agency's commercial business model? Are they shifting those employees to higher level strategy the same way that the publishers are, or changing how do you change how you bill clients when your traditional approach has been based on billable hours?
Yeah, I think it's not just reporting. If you think about, there's the atomic units of an agency. One of my agency friends taught me this. You have your planning and strategy and your creative work. That's one atomic unit. Then you have your trafficking execution work. Then you have your reporting work, and then you have your billing and all the reconciliation that goes on. Those are the 4 units. The place where agencies are adding the most value now, at least the ones that are, forward thinking and leaning into these systems, is all in that first atomic unit, and everything else.
The strategy, they're doing insights work that used to take focus groups or surveys at scale across the internet, or synthesizing data the old-fashioned way, but that's kind of the limit in which most of the execution is being done, is the strategy piece.
Exactly. Yep. And then everything else, they're taking their best operators in each of those other atomic units, and they're having those folks train digital teammates, and then they're scaling those digital teammates across their entire client base. So imagine if you took your best trafficker and you're able to clone that trafficker and give them to every one of your clients. That would be a good thing for your company or for your agency. That's effectively what we're seeing these customers do, but across those other atomic units as well. And so, I don't know, I think a CMO is always going to be willing to pay an agency for really good ideas and really good strategic work. I don't think they really will care who's doing the execution, whether it's a digital teammate or a human, as long as they're getting, the ROI to justify the relationship.
Yeah, it's the people are looking for outcomes now, not hours. Yep. All right. If an AI hallucination happens in a creative brainstorming session, today it's a minor inconvenience. But if an AI makes a mistake while executing a $500,000 programmatic buy or releasing an invoice, it can be more impactful. How does Convey ensure the digital teammate executes deterministic, version-controlled tasks reliably across thousands of runs without winging it on an LLM prompt? Is that kind of, you talked a little bit about this judgment almost, for a lack of knowing, the correct terminology. How does the AI decide when they have a high priority task in front of them and when they should go to their human supervisor or colleague and ask a question and ask permission versus just going ahead and doing, what they think is the right thing?
So under the hood of the Convey platform, the actual architecture, we look very similar to a coding agent. So the product is geared towards this idea of transformation. How do we take the goals of the C-suite and get to that outcome as fast as possible and help all the operators transform operations along the way? The way we actually implement that and at a task basis is by helping these operators codify those processes as code. And so it's a very different architecture relative to a lot of the other agent builders in market, where those might be primarily a markdown file with a meta prompt about here's how to traffic a campaign in Google Ads Manager. Whereas we are taking a process and we're codifying it as a script, as actual code. And the benefit of that is, code is king first, but 2, it's consistent and it's reliable. And so you could run a process 1,000 times and know that that process is going to run correctly 1,000 times. And this is where that sort of human in the loop feedback comes into play, and some of our product taste comes into play, which is what happens if that script fails. Scripts are deterministic, but that also means they're brittle.
Yeah.
And so if it sees an edge case or a scenario that's never seen before, what should happen in that scenario? We apply, sort of a judgment call of, is this an issue that needs human intervention, or is the issue obvious and we can kind of self-heal ourselves? And so if it requires human intervention, again, it kicks off one of those feedback loops. Maybe it's a Slack message, maybe it's an email or whatever makes sense in that situation.
In the context of how that employee likes to communicate or the level of severity.
Yeah, or maybe it's a response in Jira or whatever platform the teammate is working in, just to resolve the issue. And then that script gets updated so that issue never bothers it again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. All right. Media networks and agencies handle hypersensitive client data. Sometimes it's embargoed creative assets. Sometimes it's strict NDA terms. There was recently a little bit of kerfuffle online about how Meta AI and soon to be Google AI is basically changing brand tags, changing copy, even changing imagery without notifying the person who's running the ad campaign, basically making changes for creative optimization reasons that don't take into consideration brand guidelines and other factors that are important in the industry. When a client deploys digital teammates across their ad stack, how do you manage security, role-based access permissions, governance, so teams don't get blocked by the deployment of it?
Yeah. So we have, like I said, we have those three audiences that we're building for. The operator is one. The champion is the second. So the COO, the CRO, the C-level folks who are driving transformation. The third audience we build product for is the IT or the CISO. It's the security team that is responsible for enterprise safety. And we're actually about to do a big release on this topic. We're rolling out, I don't know the official marketing name of the product yet, but think about it as an enterprise grade trust and safety layer, which gives these security teams full visibility into what digital teammates exist inside of the organization, what systems do those teammates have, what humans can interact with those digital teammates. And we want to get as close to fitting into the governance protocols that already exist inside of a company. So you already have SSO groups that govern, a person on the finance team has access to these systems and this level of access to those systems. A person in the HR team has different systems that they have access to. Digital teammates should fall into those groups in the same way. And so the whole product is geared towards kind of being the opposite of shadow IT. We want to be a partner to IT to help them build a workforce that they can be proud of, but they can also trust in production.
CMOs and C-suite executives are reaching AI fatigue because they've spent millions on pilots that have yielded no tangible business outcomes. Convey recently raised a $38 million Series A backed by Andreessen Horowitz, specifically because your clients are seeing 400 plus hours a week handed back to the teams. When you sit down with an ad tech executive today, what's the single metric that you use to prove real ROI within a 30-day pilot?
Yeah. So I think it's 1,000 hours.
Wow. Okay. So that's an upgraded stat, huh?
1,000 hours a week for
crazy.
Our early cohorts of customers. We are not afraid of a POC. We're always offering POCs to folks who are kind of on the fence when it makes sense. And our success rate is north of 95% across all of those POCs, largely because our whole product is geared towards this idea of delivering an outcome. And so, our services model, we give you a customer success lead, we give you a forward deployed IT person to help you create these digital identities. And then we have a solutions engineering team that kind of roams around the mission critical use cases. So we're there with you to teach you how to fish and make you successful. And then the harness itself, you have visibility into this specific process. How much is this specific process going to cost me from a Convey units perspective? That's our currency that we've created. and I can see anytime I want to process an RFP and turn that into a media plan, that might consume one Convey unit. Does that, as a rational economic actor, does it make sense for me to delegate that process to a digital teammate? Typically, it's a do you hate money scenario. And the answer is yes. But where it's not, that's great feedback for us.
Yeah, so you can then go back and say, okay, well, this is a particular process that doesn't make sense to automate, and the unit economics doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And then once you start to teach these teammates these processes, you can easily extrapolate for the C-suite. Okay, these are our 15 processes that matter most. Here's how much they're going to cost at scale once we annualize the usage. And that becomes a pretty easy bet for these leaders to make because they have visibility up front.
Interesting. All right, we hear endless talk in industries panels about AI replacing jobs or automating the entire creative process. But looking at the back office, reality is how media is actually bought and sold and reconciled today. What's the single biggest truth about the future of ad ops and the industry that is still completely sleeping on, do you think, as it pertains to AI automation helping unlock these companies?
Yeah. I was talking to a COO of a big media company, a big publisher, broadcaster, and they were saying that for the last 15 years, their primary competitor has not been their direct peers. It's been these, it's the Metas of the world, these big tech companies.
The walled gardens.
The walled gardens.
Yeah.
And they're tech companies that are able to provide a really easy buying experience that has been hard for them to compete with.
Yeah.
But in the last 18 months, really in the last 6 months, that's totally changing because these legacy companies can now build world-class agents that deliver the same buying experience that these walled gardens have been able to promise. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting next 18 months as they really start to wrap their arms around what that means. We're excited to be
that's interesting. So are you thinking that AI will also power kind of campaign planning wizards that, Facebook and Google have made so ubiquitous and easy, where anybody from a, media buyer across a Fortune 10 brand down to a small business can set up a campaign? Obviously the ones at the top have better featuring and customer support, but so do you think we'll see a lot more self-serve media buying opportunities for a wider stack of clients at lower cost across more media channels?
I think you'll be able to serve the long tail much
Interesting.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we get approached all the time from the agencies and the publishers of, do we build a buyer and a seller agent? How should they interact with each other? I think everyone will figure out what their version of that looks like. But I think it will all center around what's the easiest way for us to increase the capacity of our already strapped sales and revenue teams. And a lot of that goes back to this idea of delegation of the work that doesn't really matter. It matters, it's critical, but it's not strategic.
Yeah.
And so that will free them up to spend more time focusing on problems like this.
So now that you've identified publishing, media, adtech, martech, agency land as kind of a core vertical that you guys are going to attack, what are you thinking about as a go-to-market growth marketer? How are you setting up your teams to speak well to this side of the industry and get out there in front of the right customers?
Activating our customers has been one of the best channels by far. Their love of the impact that they're able to drive has been a huge tailwind for us. And so I think it all comes back to, can we make our customers happy, and can we actually help them achieve the outcome that they all are chasing? Like the true AI transformed version of a company, our customers are starting to realize that. And so the faster we help more do that, I think will create tailwinds from a growth perspective. Our hit rate when we're in front of someone is quite good.
Nice.
But getting in front of folks is always
these companies are notoriously hard to get in front of, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm figuring out the media conference circuit.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of that. The cans, the possibles, et cetera.
Exactly.
So awesome. Well, Hawken, amazing what you guys are building. Super exciting. If folks want to follow along or learn more, where do you want to send people to stay in touch and follow along with your case studies and thought leadership, but more importantly, reach out and learn more?
Yes, we have a big case study dropping with Televisa, Univision, I think next week.
Nice.
So follow us on LinkedIn. We probably drop a case study every other week, sometimes more. And then convey.dev is our domain. If you want to talk, just reach out through there, and happily give you a demo and see if we can help you get to those outcomes faster.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, man. And for everybody at home, if this is the first time you're watching the show, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening, an honest review on whatever podcast platform you might be listening on is how we find a larger audience. So go ahead and do that if you wouldn't mind. And last but not least, if there is a media company operator or maybe somebody in agency land who's trying to figure out how to apply some of these optimization opportunities with agentic workforces or agentic teammates above and beyond the planning and strategy world, or maybe just someone who you think in the tech space or the venture space that might be excited about the work that Convey is doing, don't forget to share the show. And with that, I will see you all again very shortly. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Let's go.